Okay.
All right, so we are joined by my dear friends from Austin, Texas, the host of Black and Brown Make Green, Natasha and Damian Carillo, just some of the best financial speakers and just great people and real representatives for minorities to really learn the financial aspects. And we've got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School. This is for our college and career readiness class. I've got all juniors with me today, but we'll be recording this for all of our friends at Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you, as always, for taking some time for us today.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited to be here. And we're going to jump right in so we can leave a lot of room for questions at the end. I know that they have questions they want to ask us. So we're going to go ahead and share our screen.
Oh, go ahead.
And today we really wanted to talk about being different and what that means. And when I was in high school, I was on the powerlifting team. I was a weightlifter. And so when you do powerlifting, there are 3 different lifts that you do. And you do a squat, you do a bench press, and you do deadlift. And
yeah, and we have our bunch are at the state powerlifting meet today, so that's kind of
awesome. Yeah. So they know exactly what I'm talking about, and every week your goal was to be better. You didn't want to lift the same amount as you did the previous week. You're trying to do better, and that's what we want to talk about today. Is how can this generation of students, how can you all be better than the previous generations that have come before you? So there are 3 different ways that we want you to be better. One of those ways is savings. The second one is with your debt. And the third is with investing. So we want to give you a view of what does that look like when it comes to what have the previous generations done when it comes to savings, debt, and investing. So first, I want you to think about yourself 10 years later. How much do you think you'll have saved in a bank account? How much debt do you think you'll have? And how much do you think you'll have invested? So when we think about savings, if you think you have $1,000, then you have more than most people today. Because most people today do not have $1,000 saved for an emergency or for any situation. They don't have that much in their account. And that's across all age levels. On the slide, you can see Generation Z, only 42% have $1,000. Millennials, only 41% have $1,000. And it goes all the way up to the 77 and up. And most of them, 50% or more of people in every age group don't have $1,000. And we want you to be different and to have that $1,000, to have more than $1,000 so that you're not feeling stressed when it comes to your money.
Yeah, we want you to be better, not just different. We want you to be better because having $1,000, it could be a very impactful thing in an emergency. And it's just something that you should do to set yourself up well. And if you look at the trend in the same way for credit card debt, it's similar. If you see here, Generation Z, which is, younger folks, they have an average credit card debt of $2,500. That's kind of a lot, and as you see, millennials born 1981 through 1996, it doubles. And each year it just keeps, in each generation, it just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. So what that means is people are spending and they're not paying it back. They're not saving. They're not preparing. And that's a problem.
And then when it comes to stock market investments, people are investing, but there's not a lot that they have in there. Those who are less than 35 have about $7,000 invested. And I'm going to skip forward to 65 and up. They've got about 100,000. So imagine you're 65, you're retired, and all you have in savings is 100,000. Most people live off of at least 30, 40,000 for 1 year. So 100,000 is not going to get you very far. And so we want you to be able to set yourself up to where you are set at any age. You know exactly, that you have enough money to support you and your family. So really, there's one simple rule in order to be able to do that, and that's spend less than you make. A lot of people spend more than they make. They're spending everything and more than they make because they're spending on credit cards. They're taking out loans. They're spending this money that they don't have. So I want you to think about how can you spend less than you make. If you have a job right now, start putting $1 aside each time you get paid into a savings account. Put $10 aside, but just build that habit of putting something away.
And it's real simple. Like, Natasha says spend less than you make, but it's actually really simple. Just save that money. Just save a little bit here and there, as you can, as you make that money. Just plan to be saving.
Okay, so the last thing is the investing. So once you've got savings, you got your $1,000, you got more than that. Now you're ready to invest. And when you're investing, you're going to invest in things that can make your money grow. That's the ultimate goal, is that you're able to grow your wealth. So I want to give you 3 different people. We're going to look at the different ways that they invest and the impact that it has depending on when they start investing. So first we have Andrea, and she's starting investing at age 35. She's a little late to the game, but a lot of people don't start until they're 35. And so we want you to see what's going to happen with her starting at that age. So let's say Andrea makes $40,000 per year. That's an average salary that most people can expect to make. And she contributes 10% each month. So that's about $400 of her check going into her investment account. Maybe it's a 401k every single month. And then when she gets to 65, she's stopping investing because she's done working and she's retiring.
And that's a total time of investing of 30 years. So it's a long time.
And then we've got Erica over here. Erica is going to start when she's 25 because she was listening in that personal finance class that Mr. Pygott had. And she's like, I'm on it. I just graduated. I'm about to start my 401k. I'm about to start this investment account. So she starts at 25. She's making $40,000 per year, same as Andrea. And she's going to contribute the same amount, $400 per year, $400 per month, which is 10% of her income. And then she's going to stop at 55. So she's going to invest the same amount of years as Andrea, 30 years. But then for the last 10 years, from 55 to 65, she's just going to let that money grow. So Andrea and Erica both invest the same amount of money, $400 a month for 30 years. At the end of that time, when they get to 65 to retire, Andrea ends up with $600,518. Erica, who invested the exact same amount, but let it grow for 10 extra years, ends up with more than double that, $1.3 million. And the big difference is just that Erica had 10 extra years to let that money grow. So investing is more about a long game. The longer you have to let your money grow, the more it can compound and the more money that you can make in it. And then I want to show you just one last example of, let's say you start investing at 25 and you work until you're 65 and you invest consistently all the way through. And again, we've got Marcus. He's making the same amount, 40,000, doing that 400 per year, but he keeps investing until he's 65 instead of stopping at 55 like Erica. So then Marcus, we see, is going to end up with $1.4 million.
Wow.
So the time really makes a difference when it comes to investing. So if you can start at 18, then you're going to be so far ahead when it comes to whenever you get ready to retire. You might be able to retire at 55, maybe not even 65.
Let me show you something with the numbers here too, because this is with a static salary of 40,000, right? So that's assuming you don't get a raise, you don't get bonuses or anything. And that's usually not the case, right? Usually you tend to increase year over year. So this is like the simplest possible case to illustrate this example of compounding, right? Because as you can see here, Erica on the bottom here, she has the purple line and her line has just moved over slightly. 10 years earlier, she starts investing, but then she stops. And with that, she just gets so much more out of her investments. As you can see, it's, almost double or more than double, really.
So that time really makes a difference. So the overarching thing that we want you to know is that you should spend your money because it's meant to be spent to support you in your lifestyle, but not too much of it. Put something to savings. 10% is a good amount to start with, and invest that money wisely into things that are going to help you grow. And that's it, Mr. Pygott. You guys have questions? We're ready for it.
I had a few things to talk about before we get to the students' questions. We got some good ones from them. First of all, and I'm not, and I'm far from a financial expert. I do, I have a lot of experts like you guys come speak, and I've learned a lot in my time. But a lot of these kids want to work in corporate jobs or for the state or whatever, and a lot of these careers will offer up to a certain amount matching in a retirement. And a lot of young people especially will not put that maximum in there because they want to see a larger paycheck. But like you showed, if you're taking away from that investment, that's that much longer you have to work. It's not going to matter if you had a few more dollars on each paycheck. Because, and I've always said, if you don't put in a maximum amount a company or a government will match on a retirement account, you are absolutely outside of your mind.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, my company matches up to 4% of my salary, and that's free money. If I weren't to contribute at least 4% of what I'm making, I just leave free money on the table. Like, imagine walking down the street and you see $100, you'd pick it up, right? Always. And now imagine seeing $1,000. That's what we're talking about, right? Like, that's the amount of money that we're talking about. Free money just laying there in the street. Your company will give it to you, so you need to get that match.
Yeah, and then also, and again, I'm far from an expert, but I also have the state of Mississippi, and I'm sure the state of Texas does as well, has deferred compensation plans where you put in 50 or $100 a month, and that money is compounded, and you get it when you retire on top of that 401k or whatever retirement plan you saved. And again, if you're taking it out automatically, you don't have to worry about I have to go in and put it in, and it's done for you, and you don't even miss that money.
You are so right. You said something that's a key, that automatically, like, young people have it easy. Like, you can make a lot of things automatic now, and you don't think about that money. You don't have to worry about going and transferring it to this account or to that account. So take advantage of that ability to automatically do those contributions. Definitely.
Yeah, and one thing about this generation, they're so influenced by these celebrities and social media and influencers. But at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff you're seeing, not only is it fake, but it's never bought. It's rented, it's borrowed, and people want to have the nicest car. But I can tell you, there's not a single person on this planet that gives a flip what kind of car you drive.
No,
So much money is wasted on automobiles and trying to look good on social media. But then you see people post they need to lower their retirement age to 40. Well, you haven't saved any money. Retirement is not a time, it's an amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of people who are on this thing called the FIRE journey, which is financial independence, retire early. And you see a lot of those people retiring at 40 with $2 million in the bank, and they're able to just choose how they work for the rest of their lives. So, you get to choose. Do you want to try to impress somebody who doesn't really care what you have going on? Or do you want to impress yourself and live a life that's more fulfilling and that brings you joy, and you get your own time versus waking up to go to a 9 to 5 all these years that you may not be happy in?
Yeah, and something that you guys talked about on the last episode of your podcast, and you just had the QR code, and we'll talk about your podcast before we go, but you talked about minorities in the workplace and how it is that much tougher. But, a few things I always say, and this is not an opinion, this is a fact that is proven, and the numbers are there. Right now in the United States, Black females are the most educated portion of society, and it's not close. And then with the growing amount of Latinx Americans getting degrees and moving into the workforce, that is a trend that is growing. But the problem is the generational thought of grandparents, and even my grandparents were just so sure they could just depend on Social Security. And the trend has changed. Social Security is not going to sustain you anymore if it's going to even be available when these kids retire. And also there was mistrust of the financial systems because unfortunately, earlier in our country, there was a lot of deception and a lot of fraud going on, but that was before members of these communities were being educated and moving into these careers. So unfortunately, when people, and I was telling the story before we came on, I had a friend in college come up from a rural Black community similar to where we are in Camden. Her father was a pastor, very well loved, dropped dead of a heart attack at 53 years old, did not have life insurance. So on top of dealing with the loss of the father, they had to move out of their home and move into public housing because they had nothing saved and nothing invested to protect them in time of a sudden loss.
That's tough. That's really tough.
And it happens more often than you would think. So having that life insurance, having some type of savings is so important. I mean, my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 6 years old. And I remember the community having this love program where they gave donations to help us with, taking care of us during that time when she was in the hospital. But it can happen to any family. Like, luckily, my dad had a good job that was able to support us through that. But it's really important to think about not just purchasing things for today, but also setting yourself up for situations that come up like that.
Yeah, and also one thing I wanted to talk about, because we haven't really talked about this in our previous meetings, but I want to hear about the previous education backgrounds that you both have had, because this is our college career readiness class, And having a great degree is important in certain fields, but it's having the skills, and then once you get that job, being able to manage the income. So I know you're both in Austin, Texas, but I'd love to hear both of yours college journeys to where you are now, because I know Damian, you have a software background, and Natasha, you were a teacher, and you talked about if you had to, you could get back into it. So I'd love to hear your background on both of those.
Sure, I guess I'll start. So first of all, I was a valedictorian of my high school, and my graduating class was 33 students. So which is probably similar to y'all, right? I would imagine.
Close, yeah.
Yeah. So after that, I got a free ride to the university to public Texas school for a year, and I chose the University of Texas at Austin, which is where we live now in Austin, and uh, and it was great. Like I got accepted into the computer science department, and that was actually pretty difficult because there were a lot of people trying to get in, and there was basically a filter. You had to meet certain criteria to get in, and I barely made the cut. uh my brother was also in computer science, and he missed the cut, and then he barely made the cut next time. But some of these degrees are competitive, and I ended up going through the entire computer science journey, and then getting an internship right out of college, I guess right at the end of my college. And that internship was pretty pivotal because that gave me a lot of connections that I could leverage, and it let me understand, like how the real world works in terms of the job market. But yeah, mine was very traditional. I stopped at Bachelor of Science, and I didn't go, any graduate level work, but I've been working ever since, and it's been, it turned out to be a good decision for me.
Yeah, and I was an elementary teacher. I went to the University of Texas as well. I wasn't valedictorian, but I was in the top 10%. But when I went to school, my dad paid for the majority of my college. I did have one loan, which was like a be on time loan. I just had to graduate on time, and everything else was paid for through my dad. And then a little bit of help from me through a job that I worked when I was working in college. And then when I graduated in 2008, that was when the economy wasn't doing very well. And I got connected with the principal uh, from my mentor teacher, who I was in her classroom doing student teaching with. And through her, I was able to easily get a job. But a lot of people were having a really tough time getting a job during that time. So I know the power of connections and being able to network with people. And the education was definitely important, but it was also that connection that I had. And then after teaching for a couple of years, I went back for my master's, and I have a master's in educational technology as well.
Yeah, and we're close to the same age, but I think it's like a very common knowledge that the price of college has just skyrocketed across the
Yeah.
board. Even at a public university like UT Austin, even here in Mississippi, the prices of tuition have continued to grow. So, first of all, it's amazing how much scholarship money goes unclaimed every year. So again, you're talking about free money, and a lot of it is because kids don't look. They think, oh, I don't want to write a one-page essay. I think I can write a one-page essay if I'm going to get $10,000 a year. Um,
Yeah.
and also, knowing what is going to be required. Mississippi gets such a bad rap, but in Mississippi, with the community colleges, there's a community college right down the road here in Ridgeland with a 20 on the ACT. You get full tuition for 2 years.
That's great.
That is for academic and career path. So, and something again that I was talking about before we came on is Natasha talked about having that backup plan. If you wanted to get 2 career certificates in 2 years for free in Mississippi, you could do that. That doesn't mean you have to use them, but there's uncertain times. And again, not to brag on myself, but I had a serious car issue about a month ago. It was $3,000. If I had not had the discipline to have that aside, I'd be walking right now. So being aware that being cognizant of what your future can hold is just so important now. And I know last time we talked about this, about so many of these kids are like, man, this stuff is just stupid. It's boring. It's never going to apply to me. But I tell you, I have lost count of the amount of kids that have come back and say, man, I wish I'd have paid attention when you were talking about this.
Yeah, it is pretty boring, right? Like it's hard to visualize yourself in 30 years and say like, oh, if I do everything right, everything, the stars will align and everything will come into play. But the good thing is that it's very easy, right? Like Natasha put it, you just spend less than you make. It's so simple, right? And all you have to do is just do that one thing, and then in 30 years, you'll thank yourself. You'll pat yourself on the back, and then you'll remember, all these moments, that helped shape you, right? We didn't really have that. We didn't have that message when we were y'all's age. And it would have been so impactful, I feel like, to hear it. So I'm really, really glad that y'all are hearing it, because hopefully this does give you a little bit of a boost in life.
I mean,
Yeah.
the
So
writing's on the wall.
no, no, what's that?
I was just going to say the writing's on the wall. You see what
Oh,
happens if you don't pay attention,
no, I did want to get to these students' questions. These are all juniors. This first one is Danoa Thompson. He's actually a member of our track team and football team here, and he asked, "How did you get the name of your podcast?"
Well, I'm the black, he's the brown, and the goal is to help you make greens. And that name just came to us because it describes who we are and what our goal is to help people increase in their wealth.
Natasha's always pulling slogans out of her brain, so she's very good at that.
Now this is Harmony Williams, and along the same line, she asked, "What made you, or what gave you the idea to focus on finances on your podcast?"
We are very open when it comes to talking about money, but a lot of people are not. And what we found is a lot of even people who are couples we know who are married, they don't talk about money together. And they're afraid to look in their bank account. And they're like, oh, we just never look. And sometimes we don't pay our bills on time, even though they have money to pay it, because they don't pay attention to it. And they're afraid to even take control of it. And we saw it as a huge issue, and we really wanted to help in that regard, because we don't have a problem with it. Our parents were really open with us about it. So if we don't share, who's going to share?
Yeah.
The goal is to help people, and that's always the goal for us.
We consider it collective problem solving, because you can have a great idea, right? Like, there's not to say that people don't have great ideas, but you can have better ideas together. It's just about access to information too. Like, my brother does some kind of investing that I don't do, and I didn't know about it because that's just not what I'm into, but he knows about it. So now he described it to me, and I know about it, and it's an option for us to help us improve our situation.
Absolutely. And this is a great segue to this question. This is Celeria Chester, one of our band members here, and she was on our TSA group. We just had to go to the state competition. But she asked, "How did you get so comfortable talking openly and talking about these issues on your podcast?"
That was actually tough. That was so initially that was one of the things that we struggled with. And you can kind of hear a transformation too. We didn't really talk about numbers. It was very much like educational. And then over time it became, it kind of morphed into something a little bit different, where it's kind of more stream of consciousness, and we're just giving opinions and kind of stating our situation, because I think that that's what people really want to know is, how did we do it? How did we achieve it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they take what they can out of our situation, and they extrapolate and come to a conclusion of what they can do with their lives. So yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, because it was tough. We're not, and I think it's funny because we're kind of introverted. We're both introverted, and to put it out there like that, that was a growing moment for us.
This is Carl Wilson. He was a member of that podcast team you guys took some time to help with. So he's already been familiar with you guys. But he's one of our top students here. And he asked, "What's the best financial advice you would give a high school senior as they enter the real world?"
Spend less than you make. It's really simple. Like, just spend less than you make, and also understand what options you have to invest, or like how you can leverage that you have saved, right? For us, we discovered high yield savings accounts, and that was kind of the ball that got us rolling, right? And you realize inflation is usually at like 3%. We found a high yield savings account that was like 5 or something like that, 6. It was really high, right? And you realize, okay, well, if inflation is constantly going up, and this high yield savings account is going up faster, I make money, right? And I don't have to do anything. So, just understanding these options and educating yourself, I think, is really important. But you have to start with spending less than you make.
Going along with that, I would say figure out what you value in life and spend money on that. I think a lot of people are trying to do what you were mentioning earlier, looking at Instagram or Facebook, whatever, and seeing the cars and the clothes, and you think you want that, but really think about what you want out of life, and then align your spending with that, and make sure you're using the leftover money after you've already done your saving and your investing to pay for that life that you really want, not what other people want.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because Do you want to, we have a lot of Anthony O'Neill I show in here as well. And one thing he said is you spend money you don't have to impress people you don't like. And it's just, it's a constant struggle. And social media is great for so many things, but trying to live like the people that are pimping you out of your money is just a big mistake that so many young people make. This is Anarian Mayfield, one of our football players here. And this is a great question as well. It's more not as much on the financial side, but this is a great question for a high school student. He asked, "How do you guys manage your time to still be able to do your podcast and take care of other responsibilities?"
That's a good question. It's one of the things that we value, and so we make time for it. And then we also put in breaks between, like, even though we release every week certain parts of the year, we also take a break from it as well. So it's really about learning how to balance your time, and like that's something that's important to us. So we figure out how can we get it done. So I'm the one who I tend to like come up with the outlines or the topics. We go for walks every day, so we use that time when we walk to just like brainstorm together. So we use our time that we have wisely in order to be able to make it happen.
Incredible. No. Now we're almost out of time. And as always, it's just such a joy to have you guys with us. It's just such a great relationship we built with our class. But, even though you guys do focus on issues in the Latinx and Black communities, your advice can be used for anybody, because I've used it myself, and you guys are just so smart when it comes to relating your situations to everyday life. And it's like Damian said, you're not really focusing on numbers to confuse people, but it's more about practices and experience. So what is the main thing, other than spend more than you make or spend less than you make, for these young people, juniors and seniors getting ready to transition to college or the military or their career, to really understand why this affects them so much?
As you can see, what you do at 25, at 20 years old, it affects you when you're 40 and 50 years old. And so you can either rack up a lot of debt when you're that age. You can learn and use education get your education at that age. There are a lot of different routes you can go when you are young. And so what do you want your life to be like when you're 35? Do you want to make it easier for yourself when you're 35? Or do you want to make it to be harder? So the decisions that you make at the beginning are going to impact you at those later ages. So I would say really be aware of what you're choosing to do. I know it can be hard because you're influenced by everyone around you, but really think about how that decision is going to impact you more than just in the day that you're living in right now, but in five years from now, 10 years from now.
To double up on that, I was spotting somebody lifting weights when I was a junior in high school, like y'all are. And I was doing it incorrectly. So I injured my back. And I was probably like 1 millimeter off one way or the other. And I just so happened to do it incorrectly. And I still pay for that injury today. My back still hurts.
Wow.
And yeah, so these are the kinds of things that we're talking about, right? Like if you injure yourself, it does pan out in your life. Set yourself up correctly and you will, reap the rewards later in life as well.
Absolutely. Well, again, just amazing information. You guys just blew my mind how gifted you are, and we just always appreciate the time you make for us. But blackandbrownmakegreen.com on all podcast platforms. Great website. It's really good stuff. I encourage everybody to check it out, and I promise you take a listen to this podcast, you will learn something.
Thank you,
Mr. Feige. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to y'all today.
All right. As always, I thank you guys so much for making some time for us. Talk to you soon, my friends.
Ready. Take care.
See ya.